top-secret binary code messages, revolutionizing the world of mathematics, and the power of a well-placed burp. These are just a few hidden treats in the Odyssey of Futurama. Futurama was pretty much the perfect title for an ambitious show about the amazing world of tomorrow, and yet creator Matt Groening had some other names in mind that he originally liked more. On the first season DVD director's commentary, he revealed that his first idea for the title was Aloha Mars. His other proposed option was the significantly more pessimistic Doomsville. But it sounds like nobody else working on the show was particularly psyched about those possibilities. The title they eventually settled on was lifted from the 1939 to 1940 New York World's Fair. As visitors were welcomed into the world of tomorrow, many of them lined up for the General Motors Pavilion and its exhibit called Futurama, which offered a glimpse into the far-off futuristic year of 1960. Appropriately enough, on the show's pilot episode, a cryogenic facility employee references that exhibit's slogan.
Welcome to the world of tomorrow!
Why do you always have to say it that way?
On The Simpsons, Matt Groening's first show, several of the main characters were named after Groening's immediate family. For example, Homer and Marge's namesakes are Groening's parents. Futurama's lead character, Philip J. Fry, was also named after Groening's father, as Philip was his middle name. When production began on Futurama in 1998, two of the most important roles were locked down before voice recording began. For Fry, producers picked Charlie Schlatter, a veteran actor who is best known for playing the title role in the short-lived TV adaptation of Ferris Bueller. As for Leela, Nicole Sullivan got the job. At the time, she was a breakout star on the late-night Fox sketch comedy show Mad TV. But then suddenly, producers changed their minds and decided to replace both of those actors. Billy West, who was best known at the time for his work on The Howard Stern Show and Ren and Stimpy, stepped in as Fry. And taking over as Leela was Katie Sagal, who was best known as matriarch Peg Bundy on Fox's long-running sitcom Married with Children. Bender Bending Rodriguez, the show's resident sociopathic alcoholic robot, is perhaps Futurama's most beloved character. A big part of that is thanks to John DiMaggio's excellent voice work. The actor discussed his inspiration during an appearance for his signature character on the Kevin Pollak Chat Show. He took a little bit from cowboy movie actor Slim Pickens, who's probably best known among comedy fans for Blazing Saddles and Dr. Strangelove. DiMaggio was also inspired by drunk barflies and a little bit from a character that a college friend once performed called Charlie the Sausage Lover. DiMaggio initially auditioned for the role of Professor Farnsworth with his unique raspy blend of surliness, gregariousness, and self-importance. He didn't get that role, but he managed to book Bender using the same voice.
Glad I'm not him, whoever he is.
Dr. John Zoidberg is a wholly original creation. A man of contradictions, he's lobster-esque but also human-like. He's a doctor and yet also somehow poor. Best of all, he's a creature of the 31st century from another planet who inexplicably talks like an old vaudeville comedian. Billy West pulled from two major old-timey inspirations when putting together Zoidberg's voice, actors George Jessel and Lou Jacoby. That background definitely provides a Jewish Yiddish flavor to the character, which West thought was appropriate considering the traditionally Jewish Berg suffix in his last name. The Zoid part of the name, meanwhile, is a futuristic alien-sounding word that has personal significance for Futurama producer and writer David X. Cohen. It comes from a computer game named Zoid, which Cohen created when he was just a kid. He submitted it to Bruderbund Software, but they ended up rejecting it. They also spelled his name wrong in the rejection letter, which sounds like something that could have happened to Zoidberg on an episode of Futurama. The late, great Phil Hartman specialized in playing characters both obnoxious and oblivious, such as Bill McNeil on News Radio. He also voiced the sleazy lawyer Lionel Hutz and the washed-up actor Troy McClure on The Simpsons. So it makes perfect sense that he was cast to provide the voice of the obnoxious Captain Kirk-esque Captain Zap Brannigan on Futurama. But then, in 1998, tragedy struck when Hartman was murdered by his wife Bryn. After his passing, Billy West stepped into the role. He once had a conversation with Hartman about their shared love of old-time radio announcers who had big, booming voices and an inflated sense of self-importance. So West ended up playing Zap in that style as a tribute to Hartman.
You disgust me. Go on.
Futurama producers really wanted the Beastie Boys, one of the most popular rap groups of the 20th century, to play themselves in the 31st century. They made it on, but it didn't work out exactly as they'd hoped. The plan was to have them appear the same way that many contemporary celebrities guest starred on Futurama, as disembodied heads, kept alive in jars over the centuries. But according to the DVD commentary for the episode, Hell is Other Robots, when writer-producers Ken Keeler and David X. Cohen went to New York to meet with the Beasties, they never managed to connect. Eventually, the band members recorded their vocals separately, while Adam Ad Rock Horowitz and Mike Diamond recorded their tracks without any fuss. But Adam MCA Yauk had a scheduling conflict, so Ad Rock just did his lines for him. Even after all that, the group wasn't entirely happy with the material that the Futurama writers had prepared. In the finished episode, the Beasties perform a portion of their hit song Sabotage a cappella. They were initially asked to perform You Gotta Fight for Your Right to Party in this style, but they refused. Nevertheless, there were apparently no hard feelings lingering afterward, as the group later gave a bit of a shout-out to Futurama on their 2009 single Too Many Rappers. Futurama was primarily a comedy, but some episodes would occasionally touch on Fry's sadness and sense of loss from being stuck in the future. The 2002 episode Jurassic Bark is perhaps the most notable example in this regard. While visiting a museum, Fry discovers the fossilized remains of his dog Seymour. Professor Farnsworth then tells him that he could feasibly take some of Seymour's DNA and create a clone. During the cloning process, Fry learns that Seymour lived to be 15. He figures that after he disappeared in 1999, his pooch must have lived a long, happy life without him. But then, the saddest flashback in the history of TV occurs, as it's revealed that Seymour actually didn't move on. Instead, he waited for Fry outside the pizzeria where he used to work for more than a decade. The episode ends with Seymour closing his eyes, passing away, and every viewer sobbing uncontrollably. Somehow, this episode could have been even sadder. As revealed on the DVD commentary, the writers toyed around with the idea of Fry finding the remains of his mother, and then considering but ultimately dismissing the possibility of cloning her.
He's just upset because our boy's missing. Come on, you overgrown rat. Lead us to Philip.
The 2010 Futurama episode, The Prisoner of Benda, takes the ever-popular body swap trope to absurd new heights. Professor Farnsworth invents a machine that allows him and his intern Amy to place each other's minds into one another's bodies. Then the rest of the Planet Express crew gets involved, using the machine to put their brains into each other's bodies to fulfill various whims and goals. Alas, there's a catch, as the machine can't be used twice with the same two people. In order to get everybody's brains back to their original bodies, the Harlem Globetrotters come to the rescue with a mathematical theorem. In the Futurama universe, the Globetrotters are not only amazing basketball players, but also brilliant scientists and mathematicians. Another brilliant mathematician is the episode's writer Ken Keeler, who holds a doctorate in math from Harvard. To find a mathematically accurate way to switch everybody's brains back into the correct body, Keeler had to devise a brand new algorithm-based mathematical theorem. We won't overwhelm you with the specifics, but you can trust that Keeler put in the work to prove the viability of this complicated plot. Over the years, Billy West has consistently proven himself to be one of the most prolific voice actors of his generation. On Futurama alone, he's voiced more than 40 different characters, including Fry, Professor Farnsworth, Dr. Zoidberg, Zap Brannigan, and dozens of others. Because of this, he often plays every character in a given scene, requiring him to act opposite himself multiple times over. It would be difficult enough to record each voice separately while hearing the playback of his other performances, but West apparently tends to bounce back and forth between the various voices in real time to play all of the characters in a single recording session. One of his co-stars, Phil Lamar, was amazed when he saw West acting opposite himself in this way while recording the show's very first episode.
So the entire scene was Billy, and we all just sat in the room, and he did the entire thing in one take. 3 different voices.
With the success of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, Bob Odenkirk has enjoyed a meteoric rise to become one of the hottest dramatic actors in the industry. But before his pivot to prestige TV, he was beloved in comedy circles, particularly for the sketch series Mr. Show, as well as his stints on other sketch shows like Saturday Night Live and The Ben Stiller Show. And he's not the only member of his family known for making people laugh, as his younger brother, Bill, worked alongside him as a producer on Mr. Show before joining the Matt Groening stable. Bill Odenkirk has worked on The Simpsons, Futurama, and Disenchantment as both a writer and a producer. He joined The Simpsons as a supervising producer for the show's 15th season, while he was involved with Futurama as early as season 2. This has afforded the Odenkirk brothers even more opportunities to collaborate, as Bob voiced a character named Chaz in the Futurama episode The Why of Fry, and he played a mob lawyer in The Simpsons episode The Fat Blue Line. On Futurama, there are two distinct alien languages that can be spotted on screen at various times. At first glance, the symbols may appear to be gibberish, but they actually form a language that can be decoded via a substitution cipher into readable English. The genesis of these alien languages extends back to a time before Futurama even existed. As David X. Cohen explained to Wired in 2013, "We realized at first in The Simpsons and later carrying on the tradition in Futurama that we could hide these jokes in the background that were called freeze-frame jokes. We tried to cash in on every bit of real estate in space and time in the show." Fans were able to decode the first alien language almost instantly. The second version was more complex, and although it was eventually decoded by some dedicated fans, it took more legwork to figure out. Cohen has revealed that there was a third language ready to go, but they never ended up implementing it because it was too complicated and too time-consuming. The creative team concluded that it would go uncracked for years, and that decoding it would require the use of more advanced computers than what was currently on the market. Futurama is densely packed with jokes on top of jokes, so it's fitting that co-creator David X. Cohen's name is also a joke of sorts. As it turns out, the X in his name doesn't stand for anything, nor is it even his real middle initial, which is actually S. When he was joining the Writers Guild of America, there was already a David S. Cohen, and duplicate names aren't allowed in the guild. As Cohen recalled during a Reddit AMA, "I decided that once I was going phony, I would take the phoniest letter of all." Cohen also picked X because he thought it was cool and that it sounded the most sci-fi. Back when he was writing for The Simpsons, he wasn't yet in the Writers Guild and was therefore allowed to be credited as David S. Cohen. Then when he switched his middle initial for Futurama, it led to some confusion over whether or not he was even the same person who worked on The Simpsons. While Futurama certainly has its fair share of crass and lowbrow comedy, it also features plenty of elevated humor, as well as a notable amount of complicated math and science. One of the main reasons the show works as well as it does is because it takes its sci-fi concepts seriously. This approach was inspired by many sources, with one of the most obscure being the late Polish author Stanislaw Lem. Lem was a renowned sci-fi writer who published novels, short stories, poetry, and essays from the 1940s to the 1990s. He's perhaps best known as the writer of the 1961 novel Solaris, which has been adapted into multiple movies. His work served as a significant influence on David X. Cohen, who told Wired in 2014, "My mom was a voracious science fiction reader, so actually that's where I got my love of science fiction. And some of the books I found lying around when I was a kid were the Stanislaw Lem books." Cohen went on to explain how surreal and funny the short stories were, and how they did have a big influence on me, especially as far as the idea that robots could be characters. So Bender, being kind of the most human characters on Futurama, I think does owe a little bit to Stanislaw Lem. Futurama occasionally ventures into the anthology format. One of the most notable examples is Naturama, which is presented as a sci-fi nature documentary with the main characters appearing as anthropomorphic animals. The second segment in this episode, the Pinta Island tortoise, refers to a specific species of tortoise from the Galapagos Islands. The episode is dedicated to the memory of Lonesome George, the last living tortoise of his species, who died 2 years before this half-hour aired. The character of Lonely Hubert is a clear nod to George, who caught the imagination of the world after he was discovered by a Hungarian scientist on Pinta Island in 1971. George passed away in 2012 at the Tortoise Breeding and Rearing Center on Santa Cruz Island. His exact age was unknown, though scientists estimated that he was about 100 years old. That might sound like quite the senior animal, but giant tortoises of this type can actually live for twice that long. Leela and Amy are two of the most crucial members of the Planet Express team. They have a few traits in common, but their core personalities are drastically different. It may be hard to imagine today, but their personalities were originally the other way around. Amy was written to be a tough tomboy type who served as the crew's mechanic and wore coveralls rather than her trademark pink sweatsuit, while Leela was the softer of the two in the original pilot script. By the time casting was underway, though, it was clear that a change needed to be made. Lauren Tom wound up being cast as Amy, but there was one big issue. She wasn't a good fit for the character as she was initially written.
That's not really my persona that I put out.
Luckily, Matt Groening was willing to workshop the character and retool Amy's personality to better suit Tom. They were able to keep all the plans they had for Amy by transferring her rougher attributes to Leela, which ultimately worked better for everyone, as Tom recalled. They made Amy a little bit softer, kind of free with her love.
They made Leela the tougher one. When Katie Seagal came on, that also fit perfectly with her persona.
Futurama wouldn't have been the same without David X. Cohen's input, but there was a time when it looked like the show would have to move on without him. Soon after production on the show began, Cohen found himself overwhelmed by the job's heavy workload, the tight schedule, and the high-pressure demands. The stress reached such a boiling point that he ended up walking away for a time. As he recalled to Sci-Fi Online, "A few months into the production of Futurama, I got so exhausted that I couldn't do the job anymore, and I actually quit for about 4 days." Luckily for fans of the show, Cohen was able to keep his cool and power through all the trials and tribulations. The demanding production schedule was so extreme that the creators jokingly invented an 8th day of the week called Blurns Day to be able to get all of their work done on time. That eventually led to the creation of Blurns Ball, the show's jazzed-up version of baseball.
Except for the word blurn, that was complete gibberish.
Bender's apartment is a central location in Futurama that winds up becoming Fry's home as well when he moves into the spacious closet, which is several times larger than the rest of the apartment. The apartment building is specifically designed for robots, and all the door numbers are written in binary. Bender's apartment number, for example, is 001000100. On its own, this is a simple visual gag, but the joke goes deeper for anyone willing to put in a little extra effort. When the binary is converted into a standard decimal number, Bender's apartment number is 36, but there's still one more conversion required to arrive at the final punchline. This last step requires knowledge of the official ASCII table, which is the standardized computing chart that breaks down how letters and special characters are processed by computers. To simplify, binary uses zeros and ones to create all numbers, and ASCII then uses numbers to create all other characters that are outputted by computers. 36 in the ASCII table corresponds to the $sign, which is perfectly appropriate for Bender's greedy, money-hungry personality. Hermes Conrad is the bureaucrat who serves as the Planet Express crew's accountant. He notably has a Jamaican accent, and the show frequently references his Caribbean heritage. This has included entire storylines spotlighting his journey as a contender in Olympic limbo competitions, but as hard as it may be to imagine today, Hermes almost wasn't from Jamaica at all. When Phil LaMarr first landed the part of Hermes, he leaned far more heavily into the nerdy accountant side of the character. This approach utilized LaMarr's natural American accent, and he even recorded the first 3 episodes of the show like this. But it was clear that it wasn't quite firing on all cylinders. Matt Groening was the one who had the idea to switch things up, as LaMarr recalled to Vanity Fair. Adding the accent gave the character another dimension, added depth.
Because all of a sudden, instead of just writing accountant jokes, they were writing Jamaican jokes.
LaMarr happily changed his approach, and the character finally felt right moving forward.
Had Matt not suggested that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I probably wouldn't have made it past episode 4.
As the voice of Bender and numerous smaller characters, John DiMaggio has been an indispensable part of Futurama since the beginning. And yet somehow, the Hulu reboot version of the show nearly moved forward without him. The rest of the main cast had already agreed to return, but DiMaggio was holding out for higher pay. He considered the rates being offered to the cast by Hulu's parent company Disney to be woefully insufficient. And he wasn't just trying to get his own pay increased, but also those of his co-stars. When news of the dispute broke, fans were up in arms about one of their favorite voice actors potentially being replaced. DiMaggio revealed that the plan to produce the show without him was to have Bender's voice change from episode to episode, with different guest stars taking turns with the character. Ultimately, though, DiMaggio ended up returning and the full cast was thus reunited once again, but the situation wasn't resolved as amicably as possible. DiMaggio's return had many fans thinking he successfully landed the pay raise that he was after, but he actually didn't receive any additional money in the end. According to him, Disney was completely unwilling to negotiate or offer fair compensation, so he chose to return to Futurama simply out of love for the series.
I deserve that!
Futurama was co-created by Matt Groening and David X. Cohen, though the former is sometimes totally lost when the show gets complicated. Many of the geekier references go over his head, and he freely admits that much of the hard science and mathematics is just gibberish to him. But this is part of why he and Cohen make such a great team. Cohen and most of the other writers are all experts on the show's far-ranging subject matter, particularly producer Ken Keeler, who has a PhD in applied math. In a 2013 interview with the Los Angeles Times, Groening admitted that he has no idea how space travel in the Futurama universe actually works. As he explained, originally we planned to have the spaceship powered by the MW drive, which is magic wand. All science fiction has that magic wand where you can travel through galaxies very quickly. And instead, David had a friend who had a theory that you could slow down the speed of light and therefore make things faster. Groening went along with it, choosing to trust his writing staff and their knowledge of theoretical space travel and advanced mathematics, saying, "I never understood it, but that's what happens, and the ship is fueled by dark matter, whatever that is." Again, David Cohen could explain, as could all the writing staff, except me. There's been a ton of overlap between The Simpsons and Futurama over the years, which has extended into the show's comic series and other related media. But what's perhaps less well known is the extensive connective tissue between Futurama and the animated Netflix show Disenchantment, which was also co-created by Matt Groening and utilizes David X. Cohen as a writer and producer. Disenchantment is littered with hidden jokes and Easter eggs, including many references to Futurama. Groening co-created Disenchantment with Josh Weinstein, who also worked on The Simpsons and Futurama as a writer and producer. Weinstein spoke with Wiretap in 2021 about the Futurama references that he snuck into Disenchantment, and confirmed that there are still more connections left to be discovered. As he divulged, fans started to realize certain things, like Dreamland is the ancestral home of the elves. But there are other things people have not realized at all that have to do with the deep canonical arc. Weinstein also dispelled one particular fan theory that could lead viewers to expect a reveal that's never coming. As he explained, people have this complex theory that Disenchantment takes place in that future that we saw with Fry and the Time Machine, and that is not true. This is the first time I'm saying that because I love fan theories.
Bite my shiny metal axe!
Amy Wong is known for occasionally burping quite loudly, but belching on command is something that her voice actor Lauren Tom has trouble with. Rather than using a stock burp sound effect or faking it in some other way, the Futurama team has utilized some of Tom's co-stars. John DiMaggio has filled in as her burp double, as has Maurice LaMarche, who voices several characters on the show, most notably Kif. For LaMarche, burping is no casual exercise. He takes this bodily function quite seriously and has devised his own carefully crafted method for delivering the most effective on-command burps possible. This method also extends to other bodily noises, such as vomiting, as he employs an element of Tuvan throat singing to produce an especially guttural sound. LaMarche is actually somewhat famous in the voice acting world for his fake burping abilities, and Amy is far from the only character he served as the burp double for. Specifically, he's also provided belches for Wacko on Animaniacs and Will Ferrell as Buddy the Elf in Elf.
Did you hear that?